Hey everyone! Tonight you won't just hear a story, you'll live it. In just a few moments you'll open your eyes in a quiet medieval monastery, long before sunrise, while the rest of the world is still asleep. The first bell has already echoed through the cold stone halls, and without realizing it, your new life has already begun. So, before we begin, take a moment to get comfortable. Dim the lights if you can, settle into your favourite sleeping position, and let your breathing slow down. Tonight isn't about excitement or adventure, it's about quietly stepping into another world, one peaceful moment at a time. Now, take one slow breath and open your eyes. The room is almost completely dark. Only a tiny candle flickers near the wooden doorway, its golden light barely reaching the rough stone walls surrounding you. The air is cool enough that your breath hangs faintly in front of your face. A thick wool blanket rests across your shoulders, heavier than anything you've ever slept under before. You blink a few times. Everything feels unfamiliar. The bed beneath you isn't soft. It's nothing more than a wooden frame covered by a thin mattress stuffed with straw. It creaks quietly as you sit up. For a moment you wonder where you are. Then, the bell rings again. A deep, slow sound rolls through the monastery. 1, 2, 3. Every monk inside these ancient walls already knows exactly what that bell means. But you don't. Not yet. You swing your feet onto the freezing stone floor. Instantly the cold climbs through your legs. There are no electric lights, no clocks, no phones, no distant traffic outside your window. Only silence, and the quiet whisper of wind slipping through tiny cracks in the stone walls. You slowly stand. A simple brown robe hangs from a wooden peg beside your bed. It's rough, heavy, made from coarse wool that scratches against your hands as you lift it. You pull it over your shoulders. It isn't comfortable, but somehow it feels strangely familiar. Outside your small room, footsteps echo softly down the hallway. Nobody is speaking. Nobody is rushing. Each person walks with calm purpose, as though they have repeated this same morning thousands of times before. You quietly open your door. The hallway stretches into darkness. Rows of tiny candles glow against the stone, casting long dancing shadows across the floor. The smell of melted wax mixes with old wood, damp stone, and the faint scent of smoke from last night's fire. You take your first step, then another. The silence almost feels alive. Ahead of you, several monks move through the corridor with lowered heads. No one looks surprised to see you. No one asks your name. It's almost as though they've been expecting you all along. You simply join the line, without speaking, without questioning, without looking back, because somehow, deep inside, you already know that this quiet monastery will become your entire world. You move forward at the same quiet pace as everyone else. The only sound is the gentle rustle of heavy wool robes brushing against the cold stone floor. Nobody whispers, nobody glances around. Each monk seems to know exactly where he belongs. Ahead, a warm amber glow spills through a tall wooden doorway. As you draw closer, the faint scent of burning beeswax, aged oak, and lingering incense quietly fills the cool morning air. You step through the doorway and enter the monastery's great chapel. Towering stone columns rise into the darkness above, their tops hidden beyond the reach of candlelight. Long rows of wooden benches stretch silently across the room, already filled with monks sitting with lowered heads. No one appears restless. No one seems eager to leave. You quietly find an empty place near the back and gently lower yourself onto the smooth wooden bench. For several long moments, nobody moves. The silence isn't empty. It feels warm, comforting, almost alive. Then, somewhere near the front of the chapel, one elderly monk slowly begins to chant. His voice is low and steady, flowing through the cold air like a gentle river. One by one, the others quietly join him. You don't know the ancient words, but somehow they feel strangely familiar, as though you've heard them many times, in another life. The ancient melody rises toward the high stone ceiling before drifting softly back down again. You listen without moving, allowing every gentle note to settle into the quiet corners of your mind. The peaceful rhythm seems to slow your breathing all by itself. For the first time since opening your eyes inside the monastery, the uncertainty in your heart begins to fade, replaced by a calm you cannot fully explain. As the final note slowly disappears into silence, Every monk bows his head together. You instinctively do the same, though nobody has told you what to do. In this place, words seem unnecessary. Every movement has been repeated for generations, passed quietly from one life to the next. Without realizing it, you have already become part of that timeless rhythm. A soft breeze slips through the narrow stained glass windows, carrying with it the faint scent of damp earth and distant pine trees. Somewhere outside, a single bird greets the coming dawn with a quiet song before falling silent again. The first pale rays of sunlight begin to touch the higher stones of the monastery, but inside the chapel the candles still burn gently, their tiny flames dancing with every breath of cool morning air. An elderly monk slowly rises from his bench. His movements are calm, unhurried. He says nothing. One by one, the others stand and quietly follow him toward a side doorway, hidden beneath a graceful stone arch. You rise with them, matching their slow pace without thinking. Your footsteps echo softly through the ancient hall as you leave the chapel behind. Beyond the doorway, a long cloister stretches around a peaceful garden, where dew sparkles across the fresh green grass. In the centre stands a weathered stone fountain, its clear water flowing so gently that it barely disturbs the morning silence. For a brief moment you pause, breathing in the cool air, feeling as though time itself has begun to slow. You continue walking beneath the long stone arches, your footsteps slow and almost perfectly in time with the monks around you. Morning light quietly spills into the cloister, painting soft golden patterns across the ancient floor. Tiny drops of dew sparkle on every blade of grass, while the gentle sound of the fountain follows you wherever you go. No one speaks, yet somehow the silence feels like a language everyone here understands. For the first time, you no longer feel like a visitor. You feel as though you have always belonged here. You continue along the shaded cloister, following the quiet procession without needing anyone to guide you. The smooth stones beneath your feet have been worn by countless generations of monks, each step carrying echoes of lives lived in silence and devotion. As the morning light slowly grows brighter, tiny birds begin gathering along the monastery walls, their gentle songs blending with the steady trickle of water from the old fountain. The elderly monk leading the line pauses beside a narrow wooden door. He gently pushes it open without making a sound. One after another, everyone enters. You follow. Inside, the room is unlike any place you've ever seen. Floor-to-ceiling shelves are filled with hundreds of handwritten books. Thick leather bindings, faded parchment, and carefully rolled scrolls cover nearly every wall. The smell of old paper, dried herbs, warm beeswax and polished oak fills the air. Tiny windows allow thin beams of sunlight to drift through floating specks of dust, making the entire room seem almost magical. Several monks are already seated at long wooden tables. Each holds a feather quill. No one speaks. The only sounds are the gentle scratching of ink across parchment and the quiet crackle of a nearby fireplace. You notice that every letter is written with extraordinary care. Each page takes patience. Each word is treated with respect. One younger monk quietly places a blank sheet of parchment before you. Beside it rests a small bottle of dark ink and a freshly trimmed goose feather. He simply smiles, then returns to his own work. Nobody explains what you should write. Nobody gives instructions. You sit in silence, dipping the feather carefully into the ink. Your hand hesitates for only a moment before the feather touches the parchment. Slowly, almost without thinking, you begin forming elegant letters in a language you don't remember learning. Each stroke feels strangely natural, as though your hands remember something your mind has forgotten. Outside the tall windows, the monastery slowly awakens. Soft morning sunlight reaches farther across the stone courtyard. A pair of white doves land beside the ancient fountain, drinking quietly before lifting gracefully back into the sky. Far away, another bell rings. Not loud, not urgent, simply reminding everyone that a new part of the day has gently begun. Yet inside the scriptorium nothing changes. The peaceful rhythm continues. Ink, parchment, silence, breath. And somewhere deep within your heart, you begin to understand that life inside these ancient walls is not measured by clocks. It is measured by patience. The feather glides steadily across the parchment. leaving behind graceful lines of dark ink that seem to appear almost on their own. You pause for a moment, surprised by how naturally your hand moves. Around you, every monk remains deeply focused, their quiet concentration filling the room with a peaceful energy. No one hurries, no one sighs. Every careful stroke is given the time it deserves. Minutes pass, or perhaps an hour. Inside these ancient walls, time feels different. The sunlight slowly shifts across the stone floor, climbing little by little toward the opposite wall. Dust floats lazily through the golden beams, turning the air itself into something soft and dreamlike. Somewhere nearby, the fire crackles gently inside the hearth, spreading a comforting warmth through the cool room. Eventually, the elderly monk closes the book before him. He doesn't speak, he simply stands. Immediately, the others do the same. You carefully place the feather beside the ink bottle and quietly rise to your feet. The day's next task has begun. Without a single spoken instruction, everyone leaves the scriptorium and steps back into the peaceful cloister. Outside, the morning has fully arrived. The garden now glows beneath soft golden sunlight. Tiny white flowers open toward the sky, while bees drift lazily from blossom to blossom. The stone fountain continues its endless song, unchanged by the passing hours. The line of monks turns toward a narrow path leading beyond the monastery walls. For the first time since waking here, you leave the safety of the stone buildings behind. The path winds through a small orchard where rows of ancient apple trees stretch across the hillside. Their branches bend beneath the weight of ripening fruit, filling the air with a faint, sweet fragrance. Dew still clings to the grass, soaking the edges of your robe as you walk. Nobody rushes. Each step is slow, deliberate, peaceful. One monk gently reaches up and picks a single apple from a low branch. He studies it for a quiet moment before placing it into a woven basket already filled with fresh vegetables, herbs, and warm loaves of bread baked before sunrise. Without saying a word, he offers the basket to you. You accept it with both hands. It feels surprisingly heavy. Not because of its weight, but because somehow you understand that even this simple act carries meaning inside the quiet rhythm of monastery life. The elderly monk leads the group toward a small stone building beside the garden. Warm air drifts through the open doorway, carrying the comforting aroma of freshly baked bread, oats, and vegetable stew. Inside, several long wooden tables have already been prepared for the morning meal. Clay bowls, wooden spoons, and simple cups are neatly arranged in front of every seat. No one rushes to sit down. Instead, everyone waits quietly until the oldest monk enters the room. He nods gently, and only then do the others take their places. You do the same, carefully sitting on the smooth wooden bench. A younger monk walks past, placing a warm loaf of bread into each pair of waiting hands. Another follows with a large clay pot, filling every bowl with thick barley porridge mixed with herbs grown inside the monastery garden. Fresh goat's milk is poured into simple clay cups, while small pieces of sweet apple are placed beside each bowl. The meal begins in complete silence. The only sounds come from wooden spoons touching clay bowls, the soft crackling of the nearby fireplace, and birds singing outside the open windows. Sunlight slowly spreads across the stone floor, warming the room little by little as the morning continues. You taste the fresh bread. Its crust is crisp, while the inside remains warm and soft. The porridge is simple but comforting, flavoured with rosemary, thyme, and a touch of wild honey collected from the monastery's own beehives. Every bite feels nourishing after the cold morning. No one speaks. No one seems distracted. Each monk eats slowly, appreciating the quiet beginning of another peaceful day within the ancient monastery walls. When the last bowl has been emptied, everyone quietly rises from the tables. A few monks gather the wooden bowls and clay cups, carefully washing them in cool spring water flowing through a narrow stone basin behind the kitchen. Others sweep the floor with handmade straw brooms, leaving the room exactly as clean as they found it. Without a single spoken instruction, each person knows what needs to be done. You carry a stack of empty wooden plates to a nearby shelf. The smooth oak feels cool beneath your hands. Sunlight now fills the small kitchen, shining through the narrow windows and revealing tiny particles of flour floating gently in the warm air. Fresh loaves continue baking inside a large stone oven, filling the room with a rich, comforting aroma. Once everything has been cleaned, the elderly monk slowly walks toward another doorway leading outside. Everyone follows him once again. Beyond the kitchen lies a wide vegetable garden surrounded by low stone walls. Neat rows of cabbage, onions, carrots, beans and herbs stretch across the rich dark soil. Morning dew still glistens on every leaf, sparkling beneath the growing sunlight. Several monks quietly begin tending the garden. One loosens the soil with a simple wooden hoe, another gathers herbs into woven baskets. Nearby, 2 monks carefully draw fresh water from a deep stone well, before carrying heavy buckets toward the young vegetable beds. The elderly monk hands you a small woven basket filled with bean seeds. With a gentle smile, he points toward an empty row of freshly prepared soil. You kneel beside the garden bed, pressing each tiny seed into the soft earth before covering it with a thin layer of soil. A cool breeze moves through the garden as distant church bells echo faintly across the peaceful valley beyond the monastery walls. The work continues at an unhurried pace throughout the morning. You move carefully from one garden bed to the next, planting seeds in straight rows beside the other monks. Every so often someone quietly refills a wooden watering can from the old stone well, gently soaking the newly planted soil. Tiny insects drift through the warm air, while butterflies settle briefly on clusters of lavender blooming near the garden wall. As the sun climbs higher, the cool morning breeze begins to soften. A small flock of sparrows hops between the vegetable rows, searching for crumbs and insects before fluttering back toward the orchard. Beyond the monastery walls, green hills roll into the distance, covered with forests that seem untouched by time. When the final basket of seeds is empty, the elderly monk brushes the soil from his hands and slowly leads the group toward a narrow path winding through the orchard once again. This time the path continues beyond the apple trees into a peaceful meadow filled with wildflowers. Yellow buttercups, blue cornflowers and tiny white daisies sway gently in the breeze, filling the air with a light, sweet fragrance. At the edge of the meadow, a clear stream flows quietly over smooth stones. Several monks kneel beside the water, filling wooden buckets and rinsing freshly picked vegetables for the afternoon meal. The water is so clear that you can easily see small fish gliding between the pebbles below. You kneel beside the stream, dipping your hands into the cool water before helping wash the vegetables one by one, while the peaceful sound of flowing water blends with birdsong echoing across the quiet countryside. By the time the vegetables have been washed, the sun is shining brightly above the monastery. The air has grown pleasantly warm, yet a gentle breeze continues to drift across the meadow, carrying the scent of fresh grass and wildflowers. The monks lift the wooden buckets with practiced ease and begin the quiet walk back along the narrow path. As you pass through the orchard, ripe apples sway gently from the branches overhead. A few fall softly onto the grass, where they are gathered into woven baskets for the coming weeks. Nothing is wasted here. Every fruit, every herb, and every bundle of grain is carefully stored for the seasons ahead. Back inside the monastery, several monks carry the vegetables into the kitchen while others return to their daily tasks. You notice one group repairing a weathered wooden fence beside the stable. Another carefully stacks freshly cut firewood beneath a covered shelter, preparing for the colder months that will eventually arrive. The elderly monk gestures for you to follow him toward a quiet workshop tucked beside the courtyard. Inside, the room smells of pine, cedar, and freshly carved wood. Wooden bowls, spoons, stools, and simple shelves line the walls, each one shaped by hand. Sunlight pours through a wide window, falling across a sturdy workbench covered with carving knives, chisels, and smooth blocks of oak. An older craftsman smiles warmly before handing you a small piece of wood and a simple carving knife. He slowly demonstrates how to shave away thin curls of wood with calm, careful movements. You copy him, watching pale ribbons fall gently onto the floor. Little by little, the rough block begins to take the shape of a wooden spoon. Around you, the workshop remains peaceful, filled only with the quiet sound of carving tools, birds singing beyond the open window, and the steady rhythm of another gentle day inside the monastery. The old craftsman works patiently beside you, shaping another wooden spoon with slow, steady movements. Every few moments he brushes away the thin curls of wood gathering across the bench. You follow his example, carving carefully until the handle begins to feel smooth beneath your fingers. The scent of fresh oak fills the workshop, mixing with the warm afternoon air drifting through the open window. Outside, the monastery remains calm. A pair of monks slowly wheel a small cart across the courtyard, carrying sacks of grain toward the storage barn. Nearby, another monk hangs freshly washed robes on a long clothesline, where they sway gently in the breeze beneath the bright blue sky. When your spoon is finally finished, the craftsman turns it over in his hands with a quiet smile. He smooths one small rough edge using a piece of fine cloth before placing it carefully on a wooden shelf beside dozens of others. Some are large enough for serving soup, while others are small enough to fit inside a travel pouch. A nearby bell rings softly through the monastery, not as a warning, simply as a reminder that the afternoon is passing. The monks quietly set down their tools and sweep the wood shavings into woven baskets. Soon the workshop floor is clean again, leaving only the pleasant scent of freshly carved timber behind. Together, everyone steps back into the courtyard. The sunlight has begun to soften, casting long, golden shadows across the ancient stone paths. A gentle breeze carries the distant sound of sheep grazing beyond the monastery walls, while swallows circle high above the rooftops before disappearing into the clear afternoon sky. The afternoon slowly gives way to early evening. The bright sunlight softens into a warm golden glow, bathing the monastery walls in gentle light. Long shadows stretch across the courtyard as the air becomes cooler once again. One by one, the monks make their way toward the small stable near the edge of the grounds. Inside, several gentle horses stand quietly in their wooden stalls, while a few sheep rest peacefully on fresh straw. A young monk fills wooden buckets with clean water, and another carries bundles of dry hay from the nearby barn. You join them, placing fresh hay into each manger, before checking that every animal has enough water. The stable is calm and peaceful. The horses breathe softly as they eat, and the sheep barely stir from their resting places. Sunlight slips through the narrow gaps in the wooden walls, creating golden lines across the straw-covered floor. Outside, a cool breeze rustles the leaves of the old oak trees, while distant birds begin returning to their nests. When every task has been finished, the stable doors are gently closed for the evening. The monks quietly brush the dust from their robes before walking back toward the monastery. Ahead, the chapel windows glow with the warm light of hundreds of candles already burning inside, welcoming everyone back as another peaceful evening begins. You step quietly into the chapel with the others, taking your place on the familiar wooden bench. The room is filled with the soft glow of candlelight, brighter now than it had been before sunrise. Their gentle flames dance against the ancient stone walls, while the faint scent of beeswax and incense lingers in the cool evening air. Outside, daylight slowly fades beyond the stained glass windows. Deep shades of orange and violet spread across the sky as the last birds settle among the tall trees surrounding the monastery. Inside, the silence remains peaceful. After a few quiet moments, the evening chant begins. The voices are slow, calm, and steady, filling every corner of the chapel without ever becoming loud. You close your eyes for a moment and simply listen. The steady rhythm of the chanting blends with the soft crackle of candles and the distant whisper of the evening breeze outside. Time seems to slow once again, allowing every peaceful sound to settle gently around you. When the final note fades, the chapel becomes completely silent. No one rises immediately. Everyone remains still for a few moments, enjoying the quiet before another calm evening within the monastery continues. The monks remain seated for a little while after the evening chant has ended. No one seems eager to leave. The quietness of the chapel feels even deeper now, interrupted only by the occasional crackle of candle flames and the faint sound of the evening wind brushing against the stained glass windows. At last, the elderly monk slowly rises, and everyone follows him into the cool evening air. Outside, twilight has settled over the monastery. The sky above is painted in deep shades of blue, while the first stars begin to appear one by one. Small lanterns hanging along the stone walkways cast warm circles of light across the ground, making the ancient courtyard feel peaceful and welcoming. The monks walk toward a small stone well near the centre of the courtyard. One after another, they wash their hands and faces with the cool spring water before quietly returning the wooden bucket to its place. You do the same. The cold water is refreshing after the long day, and the cool evening breeze feels gentle against your face. Nearby, several monks begin lighting additional lanterns outside the buildings. Their soft golden glow reflects against the old stone walls, while climbing ivy gently sways in the evening breeze. Beyond the monastery walls, the countryside has grown almost completely silent. Only the distant chirping of crickets and the occasional call of an owl can be heard across the quiet valley. You continue walking through the courtyard until you reach a small open garden hidden behind the chapel. Stone benches surround a simple pond where white lilies float peacefully across the still water. Tiny frogs rest among the reeds, while dragonflies skim across the surface before disappearing into the fading light. The reflection of the first stars shimmers gently on the water, disturbed only by the occasional ripple made by a drifting leaf. Several monks quietly take seats on the stone benches, spending a few peaceful moments beneath the open sky before the day comes to an end. No one speaks. There is no need. The cool night air, the scent of lavender growing beside the garden paths, and the gentle sound of water flowing from a nearby fountain create a calm unlike anything you have ever experienced. After a short while, a small handbell rings softly somewhere within the monastery. Its gentle tone drifts across the garden, inviting everyone to prepare for the night. The monks slowly stand and begin making their way back through the lantern-lit paths. You follow them once again, passing beneath stone archways where the warm light flickers across centuries-old walls. Ahead, the narrow hallway leading to the sleeping quarters grows quieter with every step. One by one, wooden doors open and close softly as each monk returns to his simple room. When you reach your own doorway, the tiny candle inside is still burning exactly where you left it that morning. The straw mattress, folded wool blanket and small wooden stool remain untouched. You gently close the door behind you, listening as the sounds of the monastery gradually fade into complete silence, while another peaceful night settles over the ancient walls. You place the small candle on the wooden stool beside your bed before gently removing your heavy wool robe. The room is quiet once again, just as it had been before sunrise. Through the tiny window, a silver moon hangs above the monastery roof, its soft light slipping across the stone floor. Somewhere in the distance, an owl calls once before the valley returns to silence. You fold the robe neatly and hang it on the wooden peg beside the door. The thick wool blanket still carries the faint scent of lavender, dried by the monastery gardens earlier in the season. Pulling it across the straw mattress, you sit for a moment and simply listen. Nothing. No voices, no footsteps. Only the gentle whisper of the night breeze moving through the narrow cracks between the ancient stones. You lie down slowly, feeling the firm mattress settle beneath you. Although it is far simpler than any bed you have known, it already feels familiar after only one day. The candle burns lower, its small flame casting quiet shadows that dance across the ceiling, before growing shorter with every passing minute. Outside, clouds drift peacefully across the moon, allowing patches of soft moonlight to appear and disappear through your window. Somewhere beyond the monastery walls, a narrow stream continues flowing through the valley, exactly as it has for centuries. The sound is so distant that it almost blends into the silence itself. Your eyes begin to grow heavy. The long, peaceful day has gently slowed both your body and your thoughts. There is nothing waiting for you tonight. No noise, no hurry, no unfinished task. Only the calm rhythm of life inside these ancient stone walls. At last, the tiny candle flickers one final time before quietly fading into darkness. The room becomes still. Hours pass unnoticed. Far above, the stars slowly cross the night sky, while the monastery sleeps beneath them. Sometime before dawn, a cool breeze slips through the tiny window, carrying the fresh scent of damp earth after a light midnight mist. The air feels colder now. You pull the wool blanket a little closer without fully waking. Everything remains peaceful. Then, very far away, a familiar sound begins to rise through the darkness. The monastery bell. One deep note rolls gently across the sleeping valley. Then another, and another. A new day is quietly beginning. The first hint of pale blue appears along the eastern horizon, barely visible beyond the narrow window. Around you, the monastery slowly stirs awake once more. Somewhere in the hallway, a wooden door opens with a soft creak. Calm footsteps pass outside, unhurried and familiar, just as they did yesterday. You open your eyes. The candle has burned away completely. The room is cold. Another peaceful day inside the monastery is waiting to begin. You sit up slowly as the final echoes of the morning bell fade into silence. The monastery is already awake, though everything moves with the same calm rhythm as the day before. You fold your blanket neatly, straighten the straw mattress with your hands, and place the small wooden stool back beneath the window. Every room follows the same simple order, and before long your own looks exactly as it did when you first arrived. You lift the heavy brown robe from its wooden peg and pull it over your shoulders. The coarse wool feels cool at first, but soon begins to warm against the morning air. Outside your door, several monks quietly make their way down the stone hallway, each carrying a small beeswax candle to light the darker corners of the passage. Their footsteps echo gently through the ancient walls. You join them without speaking. Together, you walk beneath the familiar stone arches as tiny candle flames flicker against the rough walls. The scent of cool stone mixes with melting beeswax and the faint aroma of fresh bread, already baking somewhere in the kitchen. Through the narrow windows, the sky slowly changes from deep blue to pale gold as dawn spreads across the valley. Crossing the courtyard, you notice a thin layer of mist resting above the grass. Every flower is covered with tiny drops of dew that sparkle whenever the first sunlight reaches them. The old fountain continues flowing quietly in the centre of the garden, just as it did yesterday, its gentle sound filling the peaceful morning air. A pair of rabbits dart through the herb garden before disappearing beneath a hedge of rosemary. High above, swallows circle around the monastery bell tower, their wings catching the early light as they glide through the cool breeze. The monks gather beside a long wooden table placed beneath a covered walkway. Woven baskets filled with freshly picked herbs are arranged neatly across its surface. Bundles of mint, sage, lavender, thyme, and chamomile release their fresh fragrance into the air. One by one, the monks sort the herbs by hand, tying them into small bundles with thin pieces of natural twine before hanging them beneath the wooden roof to dry. You pick up a handful of lavender stems. Their purple flowers release a gentle scent as you carefully tie them together, placing each finished bundle beside the others. Nearby, another monk arranges chamomile blossoms across large woven trays, where they will dry beneath the soft morning sunlight. Everything happens quietly. No one rushes. Only the soft rustle of leaves, distant birdsong, and the gentle breeze moving through the monastery garden accompany the peaceful beginning of another day. When the last bundle has been hung beneath the covered walkway, the elderly monk gently inspects each row with quiet satisfaction. The fragrant herbs sway softly in the morning breeze, filling the courtyard with the calming scents of lavender, mint, and chamomile. After a few moments, everyone gathers the empty baskets and carries them toward a small stone storehouse built beside the garden. Inside, the air is cool and pleasantly dry. Wooden shelves stretch from floor to ceiling, neatly lined with clay jars, woven baskets, linen sacks, and carefully labelled bundles of herbs collected throughout the seasons. Dried apples, onions, garlic, beans, oats, and barley are stored with remarkable care. Every item has its place, and every shelf is kept perfectly tidy. A middle-aged monk opens one of the large clay jars, releasing the sweet aroma of dried chamomile flowers. Another carefully pours fresh lavender blossoms into a linen bag before tying it with a thin cord. Nearby shelves hold jars of wildflower honey, beeswax candles, herbal oils, and small bundles of dried rosemary prepared for the monastery kitchen. You help arrange the morning's harvest onto the empty shelves. Each bundle is placed with care, leaving enough space for fresh air to circulate around the drying herbs. Sunlight enters through a tiny window high above, casting warm beams across the stone floor where tiny dust particles drift lazily through the still air. When the work is finished, everyone quietly leaves the storehouse and returns to the courtyard. The monastery has grown busier now, though it remains wonderfully peaceful. A pair of monks sweep fallen leaves from the pathways with handmade birch brooms. Others repair wicker baskets beneath the shade of an old chestnut tree, patiently weaving fresh willow branches through the worn handles. Near the bakery, the warm smell of fresh bread drifts across the courtyard once again. A baker carefully removes several golden loaves from the great stone oven, using a long wooden paddle. Steam rises gently from each loaf before they are placed on wide wooden racks to cool. Their crisp crusts crackle softly as the morning air touches them. Not far away, several large copper kettles hang above a slow-burning fire. Fresh herbs are gently steeping inside warm spring water, filling the air with delicate herbal aromas. A young monk stirs one kettle slowly with a long wooden spoon, while another prepares clean clay cups on a nearby table. The peaceful rhythm of another quiet morning continues beneath the clear sky, as sunlight slowly brightens every corner of the ancient monastery. After the kettles have finished steeping, the fragrant herbal tea is carefully poured into rows of small clay cups. The warm drink carries the gentle flavours of chamomile, mint, and a touch of wild honey gathered from the monastery's own hives. Each monk receives a single cup before quietly standing beneath the covered walkway, enjoying a few peaceful moments as the morning sun rises higher above the valley. When every cup has been returned and washed, the elderly monk leads the group beyond the monastery gate for the first time that day. A narrow stone path winds through rolling fields covered with tall grasses that sway gently in the breeze. Wildflowers bloom along both sides of the trail, their colours bright beneath the clear blue sky. Butterflies drift lazily from blossom to blossom, while bees hum softly among the clover. The walk is slow and unhurried. Every monk keeps a comfortable distance from the next, allowing the peaceful sounds of nature to fill the silence. The air is fresh with the scent of pine forests stretching across the distant hills. Sunlight filters through the branches of ancient oak trees, creating moving patches of light across the path beneath your feet. Soon, the trail reaches a wide meadow where several wooden beehives stand neatly arranged beside a stone wall. A gentle buzzing fills the air as hundreds of bees move calmly from flower to flower. One experienced monk approaches the hives with slow, careful movements, checking each one without disturbing the busy insects. Another quietly gathers empty wooden frames that will be repaired later in the workshop. You help carry a small basket filled with fresh bundles of lavender and wild thyme, placing them near the hives where their blossoms attract even more bees throughout the season. Nearby, rows of flowering herbs stretch across the meadow, creating a peaceful sea of purple, yellow and white beneath the warm sunlight. After spending some time among the gardens, the group continues toward a nearby hillside where a small vineyard grows in long, tidy rows. The grapevines climb simple wooden posts, their broad green leaves providing shade for clusters of slowly ripening fruit. Several monks inspect the vines one by one, gently tying loose branches with soft strips of linen while removing any dry leaves that have fallen during the week. You carefully follow their example, moving patiently from one vine to the next as a gentle breeze carries the sweet scent of grapes across the quiet countryside. The morning passes peacefully among the vineyard. The monks move from one row to the next, gently lifting heavy clusters of grapes to inspect them before letting them rest again beneath the broad green leaves. Sunlight filters through the vines, creating cool patches of shade along the narrow paths. A light breeze carries the sweet fragrance of ripe fruit mixed with the fresh scent of the surrounding countryside. When the inspection is complete, everyone gathers a few simple wooden baskets and continues walking toward a nearby olive grove that stretches across the gentle hillside. The trees are old, their thick trunks twisted by centuries of steady growth. Silver green leaves shimmer softly whenever the wind passes through the branches, filling the grove with a quiet, rustling sound. Several monks spread large woven cloths beneath the trees while others carefully collect ripe olives by hand, placing them into smooth wooden buckets. You join them, reaching gently between the branches and dropping each olive into your basket. The work is slow and careful. Every fruit is handled with patience, and no one rushes to finish. A short distance away stands a small stone press with a heavy wooden beam resting above a circular grinding wheel. Two monks quietly clean the equipment, preparing it for the coming harvest, when the olives will be pressed into fresh oil for cooking, candles and simple lamps throughout the monastery. As the sun climbs toward midday, the air grows warmer. A cool breeze continues to drift across the hillside, carrying the distant sound of sheep grazing beyond a low stone fence. Their soft bells ring gently whenever they wander across the grassy meadow. Before returning, the monks pause beneath the shade of a large oak tree. Woven baskets are opened, revealing slices of fresh bread baked earlier that morning, small pieces of mild goat cheese, crisp apples from the orchard, and cool spring water stored inside clay bottles wrapped with damp linen to keep them fresh. Everyone quietly enjoys the simple meal while looking across the peaceful valley below. From the hillside, the monastery appears calm and timeless. Thin streams of smoke rise gently from the kitchen chimney, while the bell tower stands above the ancient stone buildings, surrounded by gardens, orchards and fields that have been carefully tended for generations. Swallows glide through the bright afternoon sky, and the slow ringing of a distant church bell drifts across the countryside before fading into the warm summer air. When the meal is finished, every crumb is gathered, every bottle is packed away, and the empty baskets are lifted once again. The monks begin the gentle walk back toward the monastery, following the same winding path through the quiet fields as soft clouds drift lazily across the blue sky above. The journey back is just as peaceful as the walk into the countryside. The narrow path winds between golden fields where tall stalks of barley sway gently beneath the afternoon breeze. Wild poppies add bright splashes of red along the edges of the trail, while butterflies drift lazily above the grasses. Every few minutes a skylark rises into the clear blue sky, filling the warm air with a cheerful song before disappearing once again among the fields. As the monastery comes into view, its weathered stone walls glow softly beneath the afternoon sun. The familiar bell tower rises above the rooftops, casting a long shadow across the courtyard. A pair of monks open the heavy wooden gate, allowing everyone to enter before carefully closing it behind them. Inside, the courtyard is alive with quiet activity. Freshly washed robes hang from long clotheslines, moving gently in the breeze. Near the kitchen, several baskets overflow with carrots, onions, beans, and cabbage gathered from the morning harvest. A young monk carries a bucket of clear spring water to the bakery, while another carefully brushes flour from the wide wooden table where tomorrow's bread will be prepared. The elderly monk quietly leads you toward a long stone building you have not visited before. Inside, the room is pleasantly cool despite the warm afternoon outside. Rows of wooden barrels line the walls from one end to the other. Each barrel is carefully marked with a small carved symbol showing its contents. Some hold grain for the coming winter, others contain dried beans, oats, or apples preserved during the autumn harvest. At the far end of the room, two monks carefully measure sacks of barley using simple wooden scoops. They pour the grain into clean storage bins before covering each one with tightly woven linen cloth to protect it from dust. Nearby, another monk checks bundles of dried herbs hanging from the ceiling, making sure fresh air continues to flow around them. You help carry several small sacks from a wooden cart into the storehouse. Though they're not especially heavy, each one is placed neatly beside the others, keeping every row perfectly organised. The work is slow, steady, and unhurried. Sunlight slips through narrow windows high in the wall, creating bright strips across the smooth stone floor, while tiny dust particles float quietly through the still air. When the final sack has been stored, the heavy wooden doors are gently closed. Everyone brushes the dust from their robes before stepping back into the fresh afternoon breeze. Beyond the courtyard, the monastery gardens remain peaceful. Bees continue visiting the lavender, doves rest beside the old fountain, and the gentle sound of flowing water welcomes you back as another calm hour unfolds within the ancient walls. The afternoon sun begins to soften as the monks leave the storehouse and make their way toward the monastery orchard once again. Long rays of golden light filter through the branches, casting gentle patterns across the grassy paths. The air is pleasantly warm, carrying the sweet scent of ripening apples, pears, and freshly cut hay from nearby fields. Several woven baskets have already been placed beneath the oldest apple trees. One by one, the monks begin gathering fruit that has naturally fallen onto the soft grass. Each apple is carefully inspected before being placed into separate baskets. The freshest fruit will be served during meals, while the rest will be stored in the cool cellar beneath the monastery for the months ahead. You walk slowly between the rows of trees, occasionally reaching up to gently twist a ripe apple from its branch. The leaves rustle quietly overhead as small birds hop from branch to branch, searching for insects hidden among the bark. A gentle breeze moves through the orchard, carrying with it the distant fragrance of lavender blooming beside the garden walls. At the far end of the orchard stands a small wooden shed with its doors wide open. Inside are stacks of empty baskets, wooden ladders, linen cloths, and simple hand tools used throughout the growing season. Two monks quietly repair a basket whose woven handle has become loose, carefully threading fresh willow branches through the old frame until it is strong once again. Nearby, another group sorts the day's harvest across a long wooden table. Bright red apples are arranged in one row, golden pears in another, while smaller fruit is placed into shallow trays to be dried later in the warm afternoon sun. Nothing is hurried. Every piece of fruit is handled with care. As the baskets gradually fill, they are loaded onto a small wooden cart waiting beneath the shade of a chestnut tree. A gentle horse stands patiently beside it, occasionally flicking its tail while quietly chewing fresh hay. Once the cart is full, it is slowly pulled toward the cellar entrance near the kitchen, where cool stone walls help preserve the harvest. You follow behind, carrying one final basket in both hands. The familiar sound of the fountain echoes through the courtyard as you pass. blending with birdsong and the soft creak of the cart's wooden wheels. Above, white clouds drift lazily across the afternoon sky, while the monastery continues its peaceful rhythm, one simple task flowing naturally into the next. The cellar entrance is built into the side of a gentle hill beside the kitchen, its thick oak door shaded by climbing ivy. As it swings open, a wave of cool air drifts outward, carrying the earthy scent of stone, wood, and stored harvests. One by one, the baskets are carried down a wide staircase worn smooth by countless footsteps over the centuries. Oil lanterns hanging from iron hooks cast a warm glow across the underground passage. The walls are lined with sturdy wooden shelves, holding rows of clay jars, woven baskets, and carefully stacked crates. Apples and pears are arranged in shallow wooden trays so that fresh air can pass between them, while bundles of onions and garlic hang from heavy ceiling beams to dry naturally. You carefully place your basket beside the others before helping arrange the fruit in neat rows. Each apple is turned gently, making sure none are bruised. Nearby, several monks fill large wooden bins with freshly harvested pears, while another quietly records the day's harvest using a quill and a small leather-bound ledger resting on a narrow oak table. When the final basket has been emptied, everyone climbs back into the afternoon sunshine. The warmth of the day greets you again as the cool cellar door is closed behind the group. A pleasant breeze moves through the courtyard, carrying the familiar scent of fresh bread from the bakery and blooming herbs from the garden. The elderly monk leads everyone toward a quiet corner of the monastery, where a small stone workshop stands beside the blacksmith's shed. Inside, the room is filled with shelves of well-used tools, wooden handles, iron nails, leather straps, coils of rope, and polished farming tools are neatly arranged along the walls. A craftsman sits beside a workbench, carefully sharpening a gardening hoe with a smooth whetstone. Each slow pass of the blade produces a soft scraping sound that echoes gently through the room. Another monk repairs the wooden handle of a rake, fitting the polished ash wood into its iron head before securing it with a simple wooden peg. Nearby, baskets hold spare hammerheads, chisels, saws, and hand-carved mallets, each cleaned after every use and returned to its proper place. You're handed a soft linen cloth and invited to help clean several small gardening tools that had been used earlier that morning. One by one, you wipe away the remaining soil before lightly polishing the wooden handles with a little linseed oil. The smooth grain of the wood begins to shine in the warm afternoon light. Outside the open doorway, swallows dart across the courtyard while the monastery bell remains silent. The peaceful day continues without hurry, and the steady rhythm of careful work fills the quiet hours as another gentle afternoon unfolds inside the ancient monastery. As the tools are returned to their shelves, the workshop is swept until every wood shaving and speck of dust has been cleared away. The monks carefully fold the linen cloths, place the bottles of linseed oil back inside a wooden cabinet, and close each drawer before stepping outside. The afternoon sun now hangs lower in the sky, bathing the monastery in a warm amber light. The elderly monk leads the group toward a peaceful courtyard you have not yet explored. In its centre stands a broad lime tree whose wide branches provide cool shade across the stone benches below. A gentle breeze stirs the leaves, creating a soft rustling sound that blends with the distant trickle of the fountain. Several pigeons peck quietly at scattered grains before fluttering up to the roof as the monks pass. Beyond the tree lies a small pond surrounded by smooth river stones. Bright green reeds sway gently along the edge, while tiny dragonflies skim across the still surface. Orange fish glide slowly beneath floating lily pads, leaving delicate ripples that spread across the clear water. The reflection of the monastery walls shimmers softly whenever the breeze touches the pond. A few monks kneel beside a flower bed filled with roses, lavender, sage, and white lilies. Using small wooden watering cans, they gently water the plants one row at a time. You join them, carrying fresh water from the nearby well. The cool water sparkles in the afternoon sunlight as it pours onto the rich dark soil, releasing the pleasant scent of damp earth into the warm air. Nearby, another group carefully trims low boxwood hedges bordering the garden paths. Small wicker baskets are filled with fallen leaves and tiny branches before being carried to a compost pile behind the orchard. Everything is done patiently, without waste or unnecessary movement. When the garden has been tended, everyone pauses beneath the shade of the old lime tree. A light breeze drifts through the branches overhead, carrying the fragrance of blooming flowers across the courtyard. Bees continue moving lazily between the lavender blossoms while swallows circle high above the bell tower. The peaceful quiet is interrupted only by the distant sound of the water wheel, turning along the small stream beyond the monastery wall. Curious, you follow the elderly monk through a narrow stone gate leading toward the gentle sound. The path descends beneath tall willow trees, whose long branches sway over the clear water. Soon the old wooden water wheel comes into view, turning slowly with the steady current. Every rotation produces a soft creak, while clear water slips over smooth stones below, adding another calm and familiar sound to the peaceful rhythm of monastery life. The water wheel turns with a slow, steady rhythm, powered by the gentle current of the narrow stream. Sunlight sparkles across the clear water as it flows beneath the weathered wooden paddles, creating tiny ripples that drift downstream. Moss covers the lower stones along the bank, while delicate ferns grow in the cool shade beneath the willow trees. A small stone mill stands beside the wheel, its wooden door resting open. Inside, the air is pleasantly cool and carries the comforting scent of freshly ground grain. A pair of monks quietly pour barley into a large wooden hopper above the millstones. As the wheel turns outside, the heavy circular stones rotate slowly, crushing the grain into fine flour that falls gently into wide linen sacks below. You step closer, watching the smooth, unhurried movement of the ancient mechanism. Every beam, gear, and wooden peg fits together perfectly, producing only a soft rumble that blends naturally with the flowing stream. One monk carefully brushes loose flour from the edge of the millstone using a small hand broom, while another ties a full sack with strong hemp rope before placing it onto a waiting cart. Outside, a narrow footbridge crosses the stream. You follow the elderly monk across its worn wooden planks, pausing for a moment in the middle. The water beneath is so clear that smooth pebbles, waving green plants, and small silver fish are easy to see. Dragonflies drift just above the surface, their wings flashing in the afternoon light before disappearing among the reeds. Beyond the bridge, a peaceful meadow stretches toward the forest. Tall grasses sway gently around clusters of white daisies, blue cornflowers, and bright yellow buttercups. A family of rabbits quietly nibbles among the wildflowers, before disappearing into the taller grass as the group approaches. Farther away, a few deer graze peacefully at the edge of the trees, occasionally lifting their heads before returning to the fresh meadow. The monks continue along a narrow woodland path shaded by towering oak, beech, and pine trees. Cool air fills the forest, carrying the fresh scent of pine needles, damp leaves, and rich earth. Sunlight filters through the branches in scattered beams, creating moving patterns across the soft ground. Squirrels climb easily from tree to tree overhead, while woodpeckers tap gently against distant trunks. Every step is accompanied by birdsong, the whisper of leaves, and the quiet murmur of the stream flowing nearby, making the peaceful walk through the forest feel as calm as every other moment spent within the monastery's quiet world. The woodland path grows narrower as the trees become taller, their branches weaving together high above to form a cool green canopy. The afternoon sun filters through thousands of leaves, scattering gentle patches of golden light across the forest floor. The air is noticeably cooler here, carrying the fresh scent of pine, moss, and damp earth after the morning dew. The monks continue at the same peaceful pace, carefully stepping over exposed roots and smooth stones. Ferns blanket the ground beneath the ancient trees, while clusters of tiny mushrooms appear beside fallen logs slowly returning to the forest. Every so often, a gentle breeze stirs the leaves overhead, sending a few drifting quietly toward the path before settling among the ferns. Not far ahead, the sound of flowing water becomes clearer. The trail opens onto a small spring where crystal clear water rises naturally from between smooth rocks before joining the nearby stream. A simple stone basin has been built around the spring many generations ago. Its edges are softened by moss, and delicate wildflowers bloom in every small crack between the stones. Several monks kneel beside the spring, filling wooden bottles and clay jugs with the fresh water. Others rinse their hands before quietly stepping aside for the next person. You fill an empty clay bottle, watching the clear water catch the afternoon sunlight, before placing a small wooden stopper into the top. Nearby stands a weathered stone cross surrounded by smooth river pebbles. Fresh flowers have been placed at its base, their bright colours standing out against the cool grey stone. A few small birds perch briefly on the cross before flying deeper into the forest. After a short rest, everyone begins the walk back along a different trail. This path follows the edge of the forest, where the trees gradually give way to open fields. The warm sunlight returns as you leave the shade behind. In the distance, the monastery bell tower rises above the surrounding orchards and gardens, its familiar outline visible against the clear afternoon sky. As you draw closer, the scent of baking bread once again drifts through the gentle breeze. Smoke curls lazily from the kitchen chimney, while swallows circle above the rooftops before settling beneath the eaves. The heavy wooden gate stands open, welcoming the monks back inside. Passing through it, you hear the quiet splash of the courtyard fountain, and see the familiar stone paths glowing softly beneath the late afternoon sun. The peaceful rhythm of the monastery continues without interruption, as another calm hour unfolds within its ancient walls. Returning through the courtyard, you notice how the light has changed since morning. The sun now rests lower above the western hills, covering the ancient stone walls with a warm golden glow. Long shadows stretch across the smooth pathways, while climbing ivy gently sways against the monastery buildings. The fountain continues its quiet song, and a pair of white doves drink from the edge before fluttering onto the roof of the chapel. The elderly monk leads everyone toward the kitchen gardens one final time before evening. Several woven baskets are waiting beside the narrow paths, ready to collect vegetables needed for tonight's meal. The garden is even more colourful in the late afternoon light. Deep green cabbage leaves glisten softly, rows of carrots push their feathery tops above the rich soil, and climbing bean vines wrap themselves around smooth wooden poles. You pick up a small basket and begin gathering vegetables with the others. A firm cabbage is carefully cut from its stem and placed inside. Nearby, fresh carrots are gently lifted from the earth, their bright orange roots brushed clean before being laid beside bundles of onions and leeks. Every movement is slow and careful, making sure nothing is damaged during the harvest. At the edge of the garden grows a patch of fragrant herbs. Mint, parsley, sage, dill, and rosemary fill the air with their fresh aroma, as a young monk clips a few stems from each plant. Another gathers handfuls of spinach and kale, arranging the leaves neatly inside a shallow wicker tray. When the baskets are full, everyone walks toward the kitchen together. The cooks welcome the fresh harvest with quiet smiles before sorting everything across a long oak table. Large copper pots are already warming above gentle fires, and the comforting sound of simmering broth fills the room. One monk slices carrots into even pieces, while another carefully chops onions, celery, and herbs on a thick wooden board polished smooth by many years of use. Fresh loaves baked earlier in the day are cut into generous slices and placed inside woven bread baskets lined with clean linen cloth. A pot of barley slowly bubbles beside the fire, filling the kitchen with a warm, wholesome aroma. Nearby, several clay bowls are arranged neatly along the table, ready for the evening meal. You help rinse the freshly gathered vegetables in cool spring water before placing them beside the cooking pots. Steam rises gently as the herbs are added to the broth, releasing the familiar scents of thyme, rosemary, parsley, and sage throughout the kitchen. Outside the open doorway, the afternoon breeze carries the distant songs of blackbirds settling into the orchard, while the sunlight slowly softens into the gentle colours of early evening. Another peaceful meal is quietly taking shape, prepared with the same care and patience that fills every corner of the monastery. As the soup continues to simmer, its gentle aroma fills every corner of the kitchen. The copper pots release soft clouds of steam that drift toward the wooden ceiling before disappearing into the warm air. One monk stirs the broth with a long oak spoon, while another carefully adds handfuls of fresh barley, allowing it to cook slowly beside the vegetables. The crackling fire beneath the hearth provides a steady warmth that makes the room feel especially welcoming after the cool breeze outside. Nearby, fresh herbs gathered only moments ago are finely chopped on a smooth wooden board. Sprigs of thyme, rosemary, parsley, and sage are added little by little, their fragrance blending perfectly with the rich vegetable broth. Another monk places several small clay dishes on the table, each holding a pinch of coarse salt collected from distant saltworks and carefully stored inside the monastery. Along one wall, rows of freshly baked loaves rest on wooden cooling racks. Their golden crusts glow in the evening light pouring through the narrow windows. One by one, the loaves are sliced into thick pieces using a well-worn bread knife before being arranged inside large woven baskets lined with clean linen cloth. You're handed a folded linen towel, and begin drying the freshly washed clay bowls. Each bowl is carefully inspected before being placed in neat rows along the serving table. Beside them, simple wooden spoons and smooth clay cups are arranged with equal care. Every place at the table looks exactly the same, reflecting the quiet order that guides every part of life inside the monastery. Outside, the evening light grows softer with every passing minute. Through the open doorway you can see long golden rays stretching across the courtyard, touching the old fountain, the herb garden, and the stone walls with a gentle glow. Swallows make their final circles above the rooftops before disappearing beneath the eaves, while a cool breeze carries the faint scent of lavender through the kitchen windows. When everything is finally ready, the fire beneath the largest pot is allowed to burn more gently. The soup now rests quietly, its flavours deepening as it waits to be served. The elderly monk enters the kitchen with the same calm expression he has carried throughout the day. He looks over the prepared meal, gives a small approving nod, and slowly lifts a nearby handbell. Its clear, gentle tone echoes through the monastery. From every corner of the ancient buildings, quiet footsteps begin making their way toward the dining hall once again. The peaceful rhythm of the day continues, carrying everyone naturally from one simple task to the next, as evening settles softly over the monastery. The monks enter the dining hall in silence, each taking the same seat they have used for many seasons. The long oak tables are lit by rows of small beeswax candles, their gentle flames reflecting softly from the polished clay bowls. Through the open windows, the last light of day filters into the room, blending with the warm glow of the candles as evening slowly settles over the monastery. You quietly take your place near the end of one table. Before anyone begins eating, the elderly monk offers a gentle nod. The room remains still for a few peaceful moments, then without a word the meal begins. The warm vegetable soup is served first. A young monk carefully carries the heavy copper pot from one end of the table to the other, filling each bowl with the fragrant broth. Steam rises slowly into the cool evening air, carrying the comforting aromas of barley, carrots, onions, celery, rosemary, thyme, and fresh parsley. A basket of warm bread is passed from one pair of hands to the next. Each monk takes a single slice before quietly passing the basket along. Small dishes of soft goat cheese, fresh apples from the orchard, and a handful of roasted walnuts are placed in the centre of every table for everyone to share. The only sounds inside the hall are the gentle clink of wooden spoons against clay bowls, the crackling fireplace near the far wall, and the faint evening breeze moving through the open windows. Outside, crickets begin their nightly song, while the sky changes from pale blue to deep indigo. One bright star appears above the bell tower, soon followed by dozens more scattered across the clear night sky. The meal is never hurried. Each bite is enjoyed slowly, allowing the warmth of the food to spread after the long day of quiet work. When the soup bowls are empty, fresh spring water is poured into every clay cup. A few monks slice ripe pears gathered earlier that afternoon, arranging the pieces on simple wooden plates before passing them along the tables. As the final pieces of bread are shared, the candles burn a little lower. Their soft light dances across the ancient stone walls, revealing faded paintings and carved wooden beams that have watched over countless evenings just like this one. Beyond the dining hall, the monastery grows quieter with every passing minute. The day's work has ended. The gardens rest beneath the stars, and another peaceful night gently settles over the ancient monastery. The cool night air settles gently over the monastery as the monks leave the dining hall and step into the moonlit courtyard. Silver light spills across the ancient stone paths, while the fountain reflects the bright stars above like tiny scattered jewels. Lanterns hanging beneath the archways burn with quiet, steady flames, guiding the way without disturbing the peaceful darkness. The elderly monk leads everyone on a slow walk around the courtyard before the day comes to an end. You pass the herb garden, where the evening breeze carries the gentle fragrance of lavender, mint, and rosemary. The flowers have closed for the night, but their sweet scent still lingers in the cool air. Crickets sing from the grass beyond the walls, creating a calm rhythm that blends with the steady sound of flowing water. Near the orchard, a few monks pause to check the wooden gates protecting the fruit trees from wandering animals. The simple latches are secured one by one before the group continues along the narrow path. Above, the moon shines through the branches, casting delicate patterns across the ground. Every leaf seems to glow softly beneath the pale light. The walk continues toward the monastery library. Through the tall windows, a warm golden light still flickers inside. A single monk quietly places several handwritten manuscripts onto a wooden shelf before carefully covering the writing table with a linen cloth. One by one, the candles are gently extinguished until only the moonlight remains inside the room. Crossing the courtyard once more, you notice the chapel standing peacefully beneath the stars. Its stained glass windows appear almost black from the outside, while the stone bell tower rises silently above the rooftops. A cool breeze moves through the open square, carrying the distant scent of pine from the forest beyond the valley. The monks slowly make their way back toward the sleeping quarters. Wooden doors open quietly along the hallway before closing again with barely a sound. Inside your small room, the familiar straw mattress waits beneath the folded wool blanket. A fresh beeswax candle has already been placed beside the bed, its tiny flame gently lighting the rough stone walls. You remove your robe, fold it neatly, and hang it on the wooden peg beside the door. The room is peaceful, filled only with the soft glow of the candle and the faint whisper of the wind outside. Through the small window, the stars continue their slow journey across the sky as the monastery settles into another quiet night, resting peacefully until the first morning bell welcomes a brand new day. The candle burns lower as the night grows quieter. Its small flame casts gentle shadows across the ceiling, before slowly shrinking with every passing minute. You pull the thick wool blanket over your shoulders and settle comfortably onto the straw mattress. Outside the narrow window, the monastery rests beneath a sky filled with countless stars. The cool breeze carries the distant murmur of the stream beyond the walls, blending with the occasional call of an owl somewhere in the forest. Hour after hour passes unnoticed. The moon drifts slowly across the sky, bathing the stone buildings in soft silver light. The herb garden lies perfectly still, while the orchard stands silent beneath a rows of ancient apple trees. Every lantern along the courtyard has burned low, leaving only the pale moonlight to guide the quiet paths between the chapel, library, workshop and kitchen. Long before sunrise, the eastern horizon begins to brighten ever so slightly. The stars gradually fade one by one as a cool mist settles across the monastery grounds. Tiny droplets of dew gather on every blade of grass, every flower, and every smooth stone surrounding the fountain. Then, the first bell of the new day rings. Its deep, gentle tone rolls across the sleeping valley, echoing through the forest before slowly fading into the morning air. You open your eyes. The familiar room is dim, lit only by the faint blue light entering through the small window. The candle has gone out during the night, leaving a thin curl of cooled wax beside the wooden holder. You sit up slowly. The monastery is already beginning to awaken. Soft footsteps pass outside your door. Somewhere farther down the hallway, another monk quietly opens a wooden shutter, allowing the cool dawn air to enter. The scent of damp earth, fresh herbs, and distant pine drifts gently through the corridor. You fold the blanket neatly, straighten the straw mattress, and lift your robe from its wooden peg. The coarse wool feels cool for only a moment before warming against your shoulders. Stepping into the hallway, you notice small pools of candlelight glowing along the stone passage. A young monk moves silently from one iron wall sconce to the next, lighting fresh beeswax candles for the morning. Their warm golden light dances across the ancient walls, while the monastery slowly welcomes another peaceful day filled with quiet work, simple meals, and calm moments shared beneath the endless rhythm of the morning bell. The warm glow of the candles slowly fades behind you as you return to your small stone room for one final time. The familiar wooden door closes with a gentle creak, leaving only silence and the soft silver light of the moon resting on the floor beside your bed. You remove the heavy wool robe from your shoulders, fold it neatly, and place it on the wooden peg where it has rested at the end of every peaceful day. The monastery is quiet, the gardens are quiet, the chapel, the library, the orchard, the workshops, and the winding stone corridors all rest beneath the calm night sky. Outside your tiny window, the stars stretch endlessly across the heavens, while a cool breeze carries the scent of lavender, pine, and damp earth through the ancient valley. Somewhere in the distance, the stream continues its gentle journey over smooth stones, just as it has for countless generations. You lie down on the simple straw mattress and pull the thick wool blanket over yourself. It feels warm, comfortable, familiar. The same room that felt so unfamiliar when you first opened your eyes now feels completely at home. Your breathing becomes slower, your thoughts grow quieter. There is nothing left to do, no bells to answer, no gardens to tend, no books to copy, no tools to polish, only the peaceful silence of the monastery surrounding you from every direction. The tiny candle beside your bed flickers one last time before quietly disappearing into darkness. Only moonlight remains. As your eyes become heavier, you remember the quiet footsteps through the stone hallways, the scent of fresh bread drifting from the bakery, the soft songs of birds greeting each sunrise, the gentle sound of the fountain flowing through the courtyard, and the peaceful voices that echoed through the chapel each morning and evening. They slowly drift together like distant memories. The monastery grows quieter. The valley grows quieter. Even the wind seems to slow. Before long, the world around you feels wonderfully still, and as sleep gently carries you away, the ancient monastery continues its peaceful rhythm beneath the stars, ready to welcome another sunrise, just as it always has, and always will. Thank you for spending this peaceful day inside a medieval monastery. May your night be calm, your dreams be gentle, and your sleep be deep. Good night.